The cold air of Council Chamber 7 bit at Ambassador Myra Solin's uncovered forearms. The vote had taken 23 minutes. The verdict took 3 seconds. New Delphi, 12,847 humans, was gone. 19 days ago, the colony had been alive. Green hills, a bread bakery, a school with hand-painted murals, a duck pond where children named the ducks after their grandparents. Now the galaxy watched to see if humanity would beg. Prime Executor Vethkor raised all 4 upper limbs. His chitin was dark blue, marked with silver scoring lines, each one worth 1,000 cycles of service. His eye stalks rotated to scan the chamber. His mandibles clicked. Humanity's colony, New Delphi, he announced. Designated Termination Zone 9, evidence of genetic instability confirmed. Annihilation is ratified by 412 votes to 3. The chamber held 847 observer seats. All of them were empty. No one had come to watch. The galaxy already knew what humanity would do. They would rage, they would weep, they would beg for mercy or demand revenge. The Vorth had seen it 100 times before. Pale dolomite pillars rose 200 feet high. The human seats were lowered platforms, forcing them to look up at every other delegate. The desks were polished obsidian, warm, fresh from the body heat of the 47 aliens who had just voted. The architecture was designed to make one species feel small. Ambassador Myra Solin did not stand, did not shout, did not weep. She lifted her cold ceramic mug. Chipped on the rim, standard issue, lapis lazuli glaze cracked at the handle base. It held exactly 6 ounces of nothing. She held it like it weighed a colony. She took a slow sip, lukewarm chamomile. The kettle back in her quarters had whistled 19 days ago. She remembered the sound. She remembered the last time she had made tea in New Delphi. Her aunt had asked for honey. There was no honey. Her aunt had laughed and said the tea was fine. The mug had been in her family for 11 years. Her first posting. The chip happened on her first day. She never replaced it. She set the mug down with a soft click. The colony, she said quietly, had 12,847 civilians, including 1,203 children under 12, and 1 duck pond. The ducks were named by the schoolchildren. Her thumb moved toward her collarbone, stopped before touching. A scar there from childhood evacuation. 9 years old, 47 hours in a cargo hold. She had learned to press the scar when she wanted to cry. It helped, sometimes. She stood, buttoned her gray jacket, the same one she'd worn for 11 years. It had a stain on the left sleeve. Coffee, from a negotiation that had lasted 3 days. She had won that negotiation. She had not celebrated. She walked out, did not look back. No warning, no declaration, no mercy. Behind her, 9 lesser delegates began whispering. One of them, Elder Thess, a Zalari historian 340 years old, kept her eyes on the human's back. Thess twisted her left finger joints, a stress response. She had learned it as a child watching her mother die. The joints popped, quietly, no one else could hear. Something cold settled in her stomach. She had watched species break before. She had recorded every one. The Vorth had annihilated 17 species in her lifetime. Each time the survivors came to the council demanding justice. Each time the Vorth offered procedural delays and legal loopholes. Each time the survivors left with nothing. This human had not demanded anything. That was new. Thess stood, followed the human out. Would you have stayed or would you have run? Because she didn't run, stay close. 19 days earlier, the Geneva deep bunker sat beneath concrete. The walls were bare. A single kettle whistled on a hot plate. 7 people sat around a folding table. Ambassador Myra Solin, 37 years old, career diplomat, 3rd-generation colony survivor. Her aunt had died on New Delphi. She did not mention this. She had mentioned it once 11 years ago when they started planning. She had not mentioned it since. Dr. Eris Thorne, 54, xenobiology. He was making bread, sourdough, 11-year-old starter from his grandmother's kitchen in Prague. Flour dusted his hands. He had brought the starter on every mission. It had survived 3 near-death experiences. He considered it his luck. General Marcus Webb, 61, retired officially. His retirement papers were fake, filed 11 years ago. He had a bad knee. He did not limp in front of aliens. He considered that his job. Layla Haddad, 42, data cryptographer. She had not slept in 31 hours. She had a mug that said, "I'm not arguing, I'm explaining why I'm right." It was empty, cold. Commander Sanvi Reddy, 39, combat specialist. She had never fired a shot in anger. She had trained for 17 years. Her hands were steady. She had a photograph of her daughter in her pocket. The daughter was 11, did not know what her mother did. Ryo Tanaka, 31, signal specialist. His earpiece was older than he was. His grandfather had used it in the First Contact War. It still worked. He checked it every morning. It had never failed. And Elder Thess, Zalari, 340 years old, keeper of the silent histories. She had arrived 3 hours ago, uninvited. "You have no authority here," Solon had said. I have eyes, Thess had replied. That is enough. I have watched 17 species die. I have recorded everyone. No one has ever asked me to stay. You did not ask me to leave. I am staying. Webb placed a photograph on the table. New Delphi, Green Hills, a bread bakery, a school with hand-painted murals, a duck pond. The photograph was 9 years old. Solon had taken it on her last visit. We started preparing 11 years ago, 3 months, 8 days, Webb said. When they first flagged us for observation. Layla slid a data slate across the table. Operation Long Patience. Active for 11 years, 3 months, 8 days. The file was 47,000 pages long. Layla had read every page, twice. The Council's entire legal framework, she said. 47,000 pages, every treaty, every amendment. Every secret addendum they thought no one would read. We found 12 articles they violated in the New Delphi vote alone. That's not the weapon, Ryo said. He tapped his earpiece. The old plastic creaked. The weapon is Article 19, Section 4, Clause 2. He read aloud. His voice was calm. He had memorized it 6 years ago. Any species found guilty of unprovoked annihilation of a council member colony shall forfeit all resource rights for 1,000 cycles and face open trial before the 12 founding species. Thorne smiled. He was kneading his dough. The smell filled the concrete room. Yeast, flour, warmth. They think we're cattle, Solon said. She picked up her mug. Cold, empty, she held it anyway. We're going to file paperwork. Thess watched her, said nothing. 3 days later, Thess was still in the bunker. She had started reading human history. All of it, the wars, the genocides, the famines, the plagues, the bombings, the betrayals, the times they had almost ended themselves. On day 1, she read about the world wars. She stopped eating for 6 hours. The food was good. She could not taste it. Her hands shook. She twisted her finger joints until they hurt. On day 3, she found the slave trade. 400 years, 12 million people taken. She did not speak for an entire afternoon. She sat in the corner of the bunker. No one bothered her. Thorne brought her bread. She ate it without looking at it. On day 6, she found the art, the music, the bread recipes passed down through generations. The photographs of children laughing in cities that no longer existed. The letters soldiers wrote to their mothers before they died. The poems written in concentration camps. She found the apologies. Humans had apologized to each other. For wars, for slavery, for extinction events they had caused. Some of the apologies were sincere, some were not, but the pattern existed. No other species in the council had that word, apology. Other species moved on, they forgot, they rebuilt without looking back. Humans looked back, humans wrote down the names. Humans built memorials. Humans remembered. On day 9, Thess emerged from the reading room. Her gray skin looked paler. Her finger joints were raw from twisting. Her eyes were red. She had not cried in 200 years. She was not crying now. She was close. You're not seeking revenge, she whispered. Solon looked up from her cold tea. The mug was in her hands. The chip faced outward, a habit. You're seeking acknowledgement. Solon set the mug down. The ceramic clicked against the concrete table. We want them to know what they did, not punish them, not destroy them, just know. Thess was quiet for a long moment. The kettle whistled. No one moved. How many species would stand with you? There are 7, Solon said. We found them. Thess nodded. She had expected 3, maybe 4. 7 was a number the council could not ignore. 7 was enough to make the observers wonder. Show me. Solon introduced them one by one. The Kith mining species, 4 feet tall, 6 fingers on each hand. They had been cheated on 14 resource contracts. Their infrastructure knowledge was unmatched. Their trust was broken. The Kith sent a pressed flour, dried, crumbled at the edges. From a planet we were promised, the delegate said. We never set foot on it. The Villani came next, recording species, 6 feet tall, photographic membranes over their eyes. They had been exiled for documenting a massacre. Their perfect recall was a threat to the council. The Villani sent a child's drawing, a house, a son, a stick figure family. The child who drew this died in the massacre, the delegate said. We recorded her last 7 seconds. We will never stop recording. The Orthaxi were the hardest to find, 3 feet tall, iridescent scales, 5 individuals left of their entire species. Post-genocide, their survivor testimony carried weight no law could match. The Orthaxi sent a broken compass. It points to a planet that no longer exists, the delegate said. We still follow it. The Bennu arrived with feathered crests and traders' scars. Blacklisted 22 cycles ago for price honesty, their economic intelligence was precise. Their trade routes were gone. The Bennu sent a loaf of bread, burnt. We tried to bake it ourselves, the delegate said. We are not good at bread. The Siller were 3-fingered jurists. Stripped of voting rights 47 cycles ago, their legal scholarship was unmatched, their representation was 0. The Siller sent a photograph of a dead planet. We won the case, the delegate said. The council ignored the verdict. The planet died anyway. The T-Chorlak arrived last, 6 feet 6 inches, Battle-scarred carapace, once warriors, now servants for 112 cycles, their combat experience was vast, their will was conditioned. The T-Chorlek sent a single tear in a glass vial. Our general cried once, the delegate said. When they made us servants, he died the next day, we kept his tear. The inn did not speak, they did not have mouths. They bent light around their bodies and listened, silent species, galactic listeners. Their intelligence gathering was absolute. Their testimony was impossible because they could not speak. The inn sent a handwritten note, 47 languages, one sentence in each. We heard everything, we never forgot. We were waiting for someone to ask. Solon read the note. She did not cry, her thumb pressed her collarbone, held, released. We are 12,847 souls, she told them. And we have tea and bread and 11 years of patience. She looked at the 7 delegates. On the day of trial you will stand behind me. You will not speak. You will not move. You will just stand there and the galaxy will watch. The Kith nodded, the Velani's membranes flickered, the Orthaxes' scales caught the light, the Bennu folded their feathered crests, the Siller cracked their 3-fingered knuckles, the T-Chorlek straightened their scarred carapace. The inn bent light. The coalition agreed. The trial lasted 9 hours. The conclave spire was full. 847 observer seats, empty during the vote, were now occupied. The galaxy had come to watch humanity break. They came to see rage, tears, demands for justice. They came to watch a species beg. The Vorth had seen it before, the Vorth expected it. Prime Executor Vethkor sat on the raised dais 30 feet above the floor. The 12 founding species surrounded him. His eye stalks rotated slowly. His mandibles clicked. A rhythm, click, pause, click, click. He was comfortable. He had done this before, 17 times before. Ambassador Myra Solon stood alone at the petitioner's desk. Behind her, 7 species stood in a crescent. The Kith, the Velani, the Orthaxi, the Bennu, the Siller, the T-Chorlek, the Inn. Elder Thess stood at Solon's right. Her finger joints were still. For the first time in 300 years, she was not twisting them. Solon did not bring weapons, did not bring evidence of genetic stability, did not bring lawyers. She brought a kettle, a ceramic mug, a loaf of sourdough bread, a photograph of a duck pond, a list of 12,847 names. I am not here to demand vengeance, Solon said. Her voice carried to every corner of the pale stone chamber. The acoustics were designed for this, to make one voice feel small, to echo it back as a whisper, to remind the speaker that they were alone. Her voice did not feel small. I am here to read names. Vethkor's mandibles clicked twice. He leaned forward, his eye stalks focused on the human. Proceed. Solon read for 3 hours. 12,847 names. She started with the oldest, Marcus Webb's grandmother. She had been 92. She baked bread every Sunday. She died in her garden. The tomatoes were still green. Her name was Elena. She read the names of the school teachers, the children who had named the ducks, the bakers, the farmers, the ones who had come to New Delphi to start over, the ones who had saved for years to afford the passage, the ones who had held their children's hands during the descent. The chamber grew cold. The pale dolomite seemed to absorb warmth. Delegates pulled their robes tighter. A Siller delegate, 3-fingered, stripped of voting rights 47 cycles ago, pressed his knuckles to his mouth. He was not crying, he was close. Several delegates wept silently. The Velani's recording membranes flickered, capturing every second. The Orthaxes' scales dimmed. The Bennu lowered their feathered crests. The T-Chorlek stood perfectly still. Their battle-scarred carapaces caught the light. The inn bent light in patterns no one had ever seen before. Complex spirals, fractals, a language made of shadow and refraction. The observers did not understand it. The inn did not expect them to. At hour 2, Solon's voice began to crack. She did not stop. Her thumb found her collarbone, pressed hard, stayed there. The scar was warm under her finger, the memory of 47 hours in a cargo hold, the smell of recycled air, the sound of her mother singing. At hour 2.5, a Vorth delegate in the third row began to tremble. His mandibles clicked, stopped, clicked again, stopped. The pattern was broken, his eye stalks went still. He was staring at the human. He had never seen a human before. He had voted to annihilate New Delphi. He had not known there were ducks. At hour 3, Solon read the last name. A child, 7 years old, had drawn a picture of a duck with a hat. The duck's name was Grandpa. The child's name was May. Solon closed the list. She poured herself tea from the kettle. The steam rose. The ceramic mug was chipped. Lappy's lazuli glaze cracked at the handle base. 6 ounces of chamomile, lukewarm. She had not put honey in it. There was no honey. She remembered her aunt laughing. She lifted the mug, held it like it weighed a colony. The chamber was silent. No mandibles clicking, no chairs shifting, no breathing loud enough to hear. The Velani's membranes were still. The inn's light patterns had frozen. 17 seconds of silence. Then Vethkor leaned forward. His eye stalks rotated. His mandibles opened. No click, just the dry sound of chitons separating. Human, he said, you have presented no legal argument, no demand. What is your purpose? Solon looked up. She smiled. Her thumb found her collarbone, then dropped. She whispered, every microphone in the galaxy carried it. We don't need you to pay, we need you to know what you did. And we forgive you, that's so much worse than punishment. The chamber went silent for 17 seconds. Elder Thess counted. 1, 2, 3, her finger joints were still. She had not stopped twisting them in 300 years, she stopped now. 4, 5, 6, the Villani's recording membranes flickered once, then went still. They were still recording, but the flicker was gone, perfect stillness. The inn's light patterns had frozen in place, complex spirals of shadow and refraction caught mid-breath. 7, 8, 9, a Kith delegate in the back row began to tremble. Six-fingered hands pressed against the pale dolomite wall. His species had been cheated on 14 contracts. He had never trembled at a verdict before. 10, 11, 12, the orthaxy 5 individuals left of their species stood closer together. Their iridescent scales dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again, a pulse. 13, 14, 15, the T-Chorlac servants for 112 cycles straightened their battle-scarred carapaces. One of them made a sound, not a word, a vibration. The sound their species had made before battle, before they were broken. 16, 17. Vethkor's mandibles opened, no click. His eye stalks rotated, stopped, rotated again. They were searching for something, a script, a rule, a procedural response. There was nothing. For the first time in 1,000 cycles, a Vorth Prime had nothing to say. Elder Thess stepped forward. Her gray skin caught the light, her voice was quiet. It carried to every corner of the pale stone chamber. When they forgive, they do not forget. They build, they grow. One day, not today, not tomorrow, you will need them. And they will remember that you made them practice forgiveness. Vethkor's forearms lowered, his chitin caught the light. The silver scoring marks on his chest, each one worth 1,000 cycles of service, seemed duller than before. Then what do you want? Solon took a sip of her tea, lukewarm, chamomile, no honey. Nothing, we already have what we need, each other. Bread, tea, and 12,847 names to carry. She set the mug down, the ceramic clicked against the obsidian desk. The chip faced outward. She walked out. The 7 species followed in silence. The Kith, the Villani, the Orthaxy, the Bennu, the Siller, the T-Chorlac, the Inn, their footsteps echoed off the pale dolomite pillars. No one spoke. 847 observers stood. One by one they left. No one spoke to the Vorth delegates. No one looked at Vethkor. The trial ended with no punishment demanded, no war declared, no treaty signed. The council had annihilated a colony, and humanity had whispered, we forgive you. And the galaxy felt that weight more than any weapon. The Villani delegate stopped recording 12 seconds after Solon walked out. She did not know why. Her membrane had never failed before. It was not failing now. It had simply stopped, because there was nothing left to record. The moment was over. The moment would never come again. She sat in the empty chamber for 47 minutes. Alone, the pale dolomite pillars, the lowered human platforms, the obsidian desk with a single ceramic mug still sitting on it. Solon had left the mug behind. The Villani delegate did not touch it. She recorded it, one image, then she left. 3 days later, on Earth, in a small green field where New Delphi's ducks used to swim before the colony, before the annihilation, 12,847 stones were placed in a spiral. Each stone was the size of a child's fist. Each stone had a name carved into it. The names were not carved by machines. They were carved by hand, by the families who had lost someone, by the ones who had survived because they had not been on New Delphi that day. Each stone had a cup of tea beside it. Cold tea, chamomile, no honey. Elder Thess stood at the edge of the spiral. She did not step inside. The grass was wet. The sun was low. The shadows stretched long across the field. She had read human history in 9 days. She had seen the wars, the famines, the genocides, the art, the music, the bread recipes. The apologies. She had not seen this. A field full of stones. Each stone a name, each name a person. Each person someone who had baked bread named ducks, laughed, cried, died. She twisted her finger joints, stopped, started again, stopped. She did not know what to do with her hands. Ambassador Myra Solon knelt by the smallest stones. Her gray jacket was stained with dirt. The left sleeve, the coffee stain from 11 years ago, was still there. She had never washed it out. She did not know why. Her thumb moved toward her collarbone, stopped, moved again, did not stop. She pressed the scar. The memory of 47 hours in a cargo hold, the smell of recycled air, the sound of her mother singing. Her mother had died on Earth. Her aunt had died on New Delphi. She had not been able to save either of them. She pressed harder. The scar was warm. Dr. Eris Thorne knelt beside her. His hands were covered in flour. He had been baking all morning. Sourdough, 11-year-old starter from his grandmother's kitchen in Prague. He placed a loaf of bread on the center stone. The stone had no name. It was for the colony itself, the place, the green hills, the bakery, the school with hand-painted murals, the duck pond. The ducks, Thorn said quietly. What were their names? Solon smiled a small smile. It did not reach her eyes. Grandpa Beaky's Splash. And one the children named the council because it was always late. Thorn laughed a short laugh, then he stopped. His hands were shaking. I made bread for them, he said. Every Sunday, I would send it on the supply ship. They would send back photographs, the children holding the loaves. He had the photographs in his pocket. He did not take them out. He did not need to. Elder Thess watched from the edge of the spiral. She had been watching for 3 hours. The sun had moved, the shadows had stretched, the field had grown colder. She had seen 17 species die. She had recorded everyone. She had watched survivors weep, rage, demand justice, demand revenge, demand something, anything to make the pain stop. She had never seen survivors make tea and put it next to stones. She had never seen survivors bake bread and leave it on a stone with no name. She had never seen survivors forgive. Thess stepped forward 1 step. Her foot touched the edge of the spiral. She stopped. She was not invited. This was not her grief. She had no right to step inside. She stepped back. Her finger joints twisted, stopped. She put her hands behind her back. Solon stood, dusted off her knees. The dirt stained her gray pants. She did not care. She walked to the center of the spiral. The bread was there, the stones were there, the tea was there. She picked up her mug, the ceramic mug, the one she had left in the conclave spire. The Villani delegate had returned it 3 days later. No note, no explanation, just the mug placed on the desk in Solon's quarters. The chip was still there, the cracked handle, the lapis lazuli glaze. She had not expected to see it again. She looked at the mug, 6 ounces of cold tea, chamomile, no honey. The tea had been there for 3 hours. It was cold, she did not care. Elder Thess, she said. Thess looked up. What defines humanity? Thess was quiet for a long moment. The wind moved through the field. The stones did not move. They were heavy. They were meant to stay. You get hurt, Thess said slowly. You remember, you forgive, and you never stop making bread. Solon nodded. That's us. She knelt beside the 312th stone, the smallest one. The one carved with the name May, 7 years old, drew a picture of a duck with a hat. The duck's name was Grandpa. Solon pressed the mug into the soil beside the stone. Cold tea, cracked handle. And for the first time in 19 years, her thumb did not find her collarbone. Thess walked to the edge of the spiral again. She did not step inside. The council won't forget this, she said. Solon stood, brushed dirt off her knees. No, but they won't fear us either. They'll just wonder, and wondering is worse. Why? Because wondering means they're thinking about us. And when they think about us, they see the ducks, and the bread, and the children's names. They don't see weapons, they don't see threats, they see people who forgave them. Solon picked up a stone, not one of the memorial stones, a loose stone from the edge of the field. She turned it over in her hands. The Vorth know how to fight an enemy, they know how to crush a rebellion. They know how to silence a protest. They don't know what to do with a species that looks at them and says, we forgive you. There's no procedure for that, no protocol, no law. She set the stone down. So they'll sit in their chambers and they'll think about us. And every time they think about us, they'll remember that we could have demanded their destruction. We could have taken their resources. We could have gone to war, and we chose tea instead. That's not forgiveness, Thess said. That's strategy. Solon smiled, a real smile this time, small, tired. It's both. The sun was lower now, almost touching the horizon. The shadows were long, the field was cold. Thess had not moved from the edge of the spiral. She had been standing there for 4 hours. Her legs ached, her back ached. She did not sit. She was watching. That was her job, to watch, to record, to remember. She had watched 17 species die. She had recorded everyone. She had told herself that watching was enough, that remembering was enough, that she did not need to act. She was not sure anymore. Ambassador, she said. Solon looked up. May I ask you something? Oh, yes. Why did you let me stay in the bunker? I was uninvited. I had no authority. I was a stranger. You could have removed me. Solon was quiet for a moment. She picked up her mug, cold tea. She did not drink it. Because you asked. That's all. You came to the bunker. You didn't come to the council. You didn't go to the media. You came to us. And you asked to stay. No one had ever asked us anything before. The council tells us what to do. The other species ignore us. You asked. Thess twisted her finger joints, stopped. I was afraid, she said. I had watched 17 species die. I thought you would be the 18th. I came because I wanted to record it so someone would remember. Then now. Thess looked at the spiral. 12,847 stones, 12,847 cups of cold tea, 1 loaf of bread. Now I think I came because I wanted to be wrong. The sun touched the horizon. The sky turned orange, then red, then purple. The field was quiet, no wind, no birds, just the stones, just the tea, just the bread. Solon walked the spiral one last time. She touched each stone as she passed, not reading the names, just touching. Just remembering. Her thumb stayed at her side. Thess watched. She did not follow. She stayed at the edge. You said something, Thess said. In the chamber. After you read the names, you said, "We forgive you." Oh yes. Did you mean it? Solon stopped walking. She was at the center of the spiral. The bread was at her feet. The stones were around her. The tea was cold. I meant that we are choosing not to become what they are. That's what forgiveness means to us. It doesn't mean we forgot. It doesn't mean we're okay with what happened. It means we're not going to let what they did turn us into something that does the same thing to someone else. She looked at Thess. That's the hardest part, not forgiving them. Forgiving ourselves for being angry enough to want to hurt them back. Thess said nothing. The sun went down. The first stars appeared. Solon sat on the ground, cross-legged. Her gray jacket was dirty. Her pants were stained with grass. Her hands were cold. She did not move. Thess sat at the edge of the spiral, not inside, not quite outside. Her gray skin was pale in the starlight. Her finger joints were still. The galaxy will change, Thess said. After this, the other species saw what you did, the ones who have been watching, the ones who have been waiting. They saw a species that had every right to declare war, and you made tea instead. They'll still be afraid, Solon said. The council won't stop being the council. The Vorth won't stop being the Vorth. No. But now there's a question that didn't exist before. What question? If you can forgive, what else can you do? Solon was quiet for a long moment. The stars were brighter now. The field was dark. The stones were dark. The tea was dark. We can build, she said. We can grow. We can make bread. We can name ducks. We can carve names into stones and leave tea beside them. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. That's not a weapon, Thess said. No, it's better. Thess stood. Her legs ached. Her back ached. She had been sitting for 2 hours. She looked at the spiral. 12,847 stones. In the dark, she could not see the names. She did not need to see them. She remembered them, everyone. She had recorded the 3 hours of names. Every syllable, every pause, every crack in Solon's voice. She would listen to it again, tomorrow and the next day and the next. Not because she was recording history. Because she needed to remember what forgiveness looked like. The council will send someone, Thess said. In a few weeks or months, they'll want to talk, they'll want to understand. Solon nodded. Send them to the duck pond. The duck pond is gone. Then send them to where it used to be. They can stand there and imagine ducks. Thess almost smiled, almost. Solon stood, her knees cracked. She was 37, she felt older. She walked to the edge of the spiral. Thess was there, waiting. Will you come back, Thess asked, to the council. Maybe. If they ask. They won't ask. Then no. Solon looked back at the spiral. 12,847 stones, 1 loaf of bread, 12,847 cups of cold tea. May, she said. What? The child, the last name I read, she was 7. She drew a duck with a hat. She called the duck Grandpa because her grandfather had died the year before. She missed him. So she drew a duck and put a hat on it and called it his name. Thess said nothing. She used to run to the bakery every morning. Thorn would give her a piece of bread before it was cool. She would burn her fingers and laugh. Her laugh was loud. You could hear it across the whole colony. Solon's voice cracked. She did not stop. Her mother sent me a message 2 days before the vote. She said May had drawn a picture of me with a duck. She said May wanted to know when I was coming back to visit. Solon pressed her hand to her chest. Her collarbone, her thumb did not find the scar. She was not looking for it. I'm not coming back, not to New Delphi, not to the colony. It's gone, but I'm going to keep making tea, and Thorn is going to keep making bread. And we're going to keep carving names into stones, because that's how we win. That's how we win, not by burning them, by becoming the thing they can't stop remembering. Thess stood alone at the edge of the spiral. Solon had walked back to the road. Her gray jacket was dark in the starlight. Her footsteps were quiet. She did not look back. The field was empty, just the stones, just the tea, just the bread. Thess twisted her finger joints, stopped. She looked at the spiral. 12,847 stones. She could not see the names. She remembered them anyway. She had watched 17 species die. She had just watched a species choose to live. In the distance, a kettle whistled. Thess stayed outside the spiral. She did not step inside. Some things are not for witnesses. Some things are only for the ones who lost.